The steady beeping of the heart monitor filled the quiet hospital room, a rhythmic reminder that I was still here. I stared at the ceiling, the sterile white tiles blurring into each other as I tried to ignore the dull ache in my side. The surgery had gone well, or so the doctor said. My body was healing, but my mind was restless. Then my phone vibrated on the bedside table. I glanced at the screen and frowned. Dad. For a moment, I debated letting it go to voicemail. We weren't close. Not anymore. My father, Eric, had a habit of showing up only when he needed something, and I wasn't in the mood to hear another excuse. But something in my gut told me to pick up. Hello? Hey, kiddo. His voice was too cheerful, too casual. How you feeling? I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. Rare. My father never asked how I was. That meant he wanted something. I'm fine, I said flatly. What's up? There was a pause. Then, the words that made my blood run cold. So, listen. I had to use your college fund. Had some debts to settle. It's not like you really needed it, right? My grip on the phone tightened. My heart pounded against my ribcage. Not from pain, but from sheer disbelief. You what? My voice was calmer than I expected. Almost detached, like I was watching this moment happen to someone else. Eric let out a nervous chuckle, as if this were some minor inconvenience. Things got a little tight, you know how it is, but you're smart. You'll figure it out. I sat up too fast, a sharp pain shooting through my abdomen. My body screamed in protest, but I barely noticed. How much is left? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Another pause. Then, the hammer dropped. Nothing. It's all gone. I stared at the wall, my mind racing. My college fund, the one I had spent years building through scholarships, tutoring gigs, and part-time jobs, was gone. Every last penny. Eric cleared his throat, mistaking my silence for acceptance. Look, no point getting upset. What's done is done, right? Might as well move on. Move on? I glanced around the hospital room, the IV drip, the white sheets, the monitors keeping track of my vitals. That money wasn't just about tuition. It was my future, my independence, and he had stolen it. I exhaled slowly, forcing the fire in my chest to settle. Good luck with that, I said simply. He laughed. See, that's the attitude. You're always so practical. Anyway, gotta run, meeting some friends for drinks. We'll catch up when you're out, yeah? And just like that, he hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone, my hands trembling with rage. The room was suddenly too quiet, the weight of what just happened pressing down on me like a lead blanket. I should have cried, should have panicked, but I didn't. Because I knew something my father didn't. I wasn't a little girl anymore. And this time, he wasn't going to get away with it. The first move. The second I was discharged from the hospital, I didn't go home to rest. I had a different priority. I limped to my desk, ignoring the dull ache in my side, and powered up my laptop. The discharge papers sat untouched in my bag. I could worry about my health later. This was more important. Step 1. Follow the money. I logged into my bank account. As expected, my balance was 0. Eric had drained everything, but I wasn't just checking to confirm what I already knew. I was looking at the pattern. There. Each withdrawal had been made in small increments over the past 6 months, just under the threshold that would trigger automatic fraud alerts. Classic Eric. Always sneaky, always careful, always knowing exactly how to get away with things. I took screenshots of every transaction, every suspicious withdrawal. Then I opened my emails and pulled up my scholarship records, the ones that proved I had earned every cent of that money. I drafted a message to my bank, requesting an official statement of all activity for the past year. Because Eric had made one critical mistake. Yes, he was a co-signer on the account, but the money was mine. And if there was one thing banks and courts didn't like, it was evidence of financial abuse. I almost laughed, imagining his voice in my head. It's just money, kiddo. No need to get all worked up. No, Dad, it wasn't just money. It was my future. And he had no idea what was coming next. Cutting him off, Eric assumed I would roll over, just like I always had. That I would sulk, maybe cry, but ultimately do nothing. He was wrong. After securing the evidence, I moved on to my next step, protecting what was left. Though my college fund was gone, my father didn't know about my secondary savings accounts. Over the years, I had learned never to put all my money in one place, especially when Eric had access to it. I transferred every remaining dollar into a new bank, one he couldn't touch. Then I changed every password, set up two-factor authentication, and locked everything down so tight that not even a hacker could break in. By the time I was finished, my finances were completely out of his reach. And that was only the beginning. The next call, I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, my phone rang again. Eric. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, all fake warmth and charm. "Settled in okay?" I played along. "Yeah, feeling better? What's up?" He sighed dramatically. "Well, things are a little tight. That college fund, it wasn't enough to cover everything, you know?" I almost laughed. The fund had been over $50,000, and he had already burned through it. I kept my voice neutral. "I see, so what do you need?" There was a slight pause, then he cleared his throat. "Well, I was thinking, you're always so good with money. You wouldn't happen to have any other accounts, would you? Just something small to help your old man out?" And there it was. The greed. The entitlement. The absolute audacity. He had already stolen from me, lied to my face, and now he was coming back for more. I let the silence stretch, making him sweat. Then I said, "I don't know, Dad. Maybe we should talk about this in person." I could hear the relief in his voice. "That's my girl. Let's sit down. Just you and me. No need to get anyone else involved, right?" I smiled. "Oh, Dad, you really think I'm gonna let you walk away from this?" This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about consequences, and for the first time in his life, Eric was about to face them. I arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. Not because I was eager to see my father, but because I wanted to watch him before he saw me. From my spot near the back, I had a clear view of the entrance. I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly, my eyes fixed on the door. The cafe was quiet, the late afternoon lull keeping most people away. Then, right on time, Eric walked in. He was easy to spot. Same confident stride, same cocky smirk, but there was something different this time. A slight stiffness in his shoulders, a restless bounce in his step, nervousness. Good. I watched him scan the room before he found me. His eyes lit up, and he plastered on his signature grin as he strolled over. "Kiddo," he greeted, sliding into the chair across from me. I didn't return the smile. Instead, I leaned back, studying him. "So, Dad," I said coolly, "what's so urgent?" He chuckled, as if we were just two old friends catching up. "Mia, sweetheart, you always get straight to the point, huh?" I tilted my head. "I learned from the best." His smirk faltered for half a second before he masked it with a forced chuckle. "Listen," he said, resting his elbows on the table. "I won't waste your time. You know things have been rough lately. I just need a little help getting back on my feet." I crossed my arms. "Back on your feet? You stole 50 grand from me. What exactly did you do with it?" His jaw tightened, but he forced another smile. "Sweetheart, you don't understand. That money, it wasn't just for me. I had some obligations, some people I owed. You wouldn't believe how much pressure I was under." I raised an eyebrow. "And that justifies emptying my future?" He sighed dramatically, rubbing his temple. "Mia, don't be so dramatic. It's just money. You're young. You'll earn it back. Besides, I needed it more than you did. You'd be fine." That was it. That was the moment I knew. He didn't regret stealing from me. He regretted getting caught. I exhaled slowly, then leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough to make him pay attention. "You know what's funny, Dad?" I said, tapping my nails against my coffee cup. "I actually do have some money saved." His entire posture shifted. Shoulders relaxed, eyes lit up. "Hope? That's my girl," he said, his voice dripping with fake warmth. "I knew you'd understand. Just a little loan. I'll pay you back." I smiled, mirroring his expression. "I just have one question." "Of course, anything." I tilted my head. "Why don't you just use the money from your secret account?" The color drained from his face. For the first time since he sat down, Eric looked genuinely afraid. What?" His laugh was forced. "Mia, honey, I don't." I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, screen up. "I know about the offshore account in your name," I said, watching his expression carefully. "The one you've been moving money into for years." He went still. "And I know," I continued, "that even after you stole from me, you still had enough saved to keep yourself comfortable." His mask cracked. His fingers twitched around his coffee cup, his lips pressing into a thin line. "How did you find out?" he muttered. I shrugged. "I had help." I didn't tell him that my Aunt Sarah, his estranged sister, was a lawyer. Or that my grandmother, his own mother, had been furious when I told her everything. I didn't tell him that while he had been playing games, I had been building a case against him. I just smiled. "You have two options, Dad," I said, keeping my voice steady. He swallowed hard. "And what are those?" "Option 1. You pay back every single cent you stole from me. I don't care how long it takes. I want it all back." He let out a slow breath. "And option 2. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch before speaking. "I press charges." His face twisted with anger. "You wouldn't." I raised an eyebrow. "Wouldn't I?" "You're threatening your own father?" His voice rose slightly. "This is family, Mia. You don't do this to family." I scoffed. "Funny, I was thinking the same thing when you drained my college fund while I was in a hospital bed." Silence. For the first time in his life, Eric had no control. "You have 1 week," I said, standing up. "If I don't see the first payment by then, I make the call." Then, without waiting for his response, I walked out of the cafe. I didn't look back. The waiting game, I knew my father well enough to predict his next moves. Denial, anger, desperation, and right on schedule the text started. Day 2, 10:14 a.m. "Mia, let's be reasonable. No need to be so dramatic about this." Ignored. Day 3, 3:42 p.m. "I can't come up with the money that fast. Let's talk." Ignored. Day 5, 11:56 p.m. "Please, Mia, I don't have anywhere to turn." I stared at the message for a long time before finally replying. "Me. Time won't magically bring back my money. Find a way." "Eric, you're being heartless." I laughed. Heartless? This was a man who had stolen from his own daughter while she was recovering in a hospital bed, and I was the heartless one? I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The breaking point. By day 7, Eric had reached full panic mode. My grandmother called me that morning. "He showed up at my house last night," she said, her voice sharp with disapproval. "Tried to get me to talk to you." I clenched my jaw. "What did you say?" "I told him he made his bed," she said. "Now he has to lie in it." A warmth spread through my chest. My grandmother was the only person my father had ever feared. "He's desperate," she continued, "and when Eric gets desperate, he gets sloppy." She was right, because 2 hours later I got a text from my cousin Jake. "Jake, yo, Uncle Eric just called me. Tried to convince me to co-sign a loan for him." I nearly dropped my phone. He was trying to drag someone else down with him. That was when I knew. He was truly out of options. And it was time for the final phase. I stared at my phone screen, the message from Jake burning into my mind. He was trying to co-sign a loan? My father, who had spent his entire life dodging responsibility, was now desperate enough to try pulling my cousin into his mess. Good. That meant he was finally out of moves. I took a deep breath, steadying my thoughts. This wasn't just about getting my money back anymore. This was about making sure he never did this again. I picked up my phone and dialed Aunt Sarah. She answered on the first ring. "Mia, I was just about to call you. I heard about Eric trying to drag Jake into this." I sighed. "Yeah, he's getting desperate, which means it's time." A pause. "Then you're sure?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Let's do it." I heard a rustling of papers on her end, then a low hum of approval. "All right, I'll start drafting the legal paperwork. If he refuses to cooperate, we'll escalate to fraud charges." I exhaled. "Thanks, Aunt Sarah." She hesitated. "Mia, I know this is hard. I know he's still your father, but he stopped being my father the moment he stole my future," I said coldly. She didn't argue, because she knew I was right. The final call. Day 10. I had been waiting for this moment. Right on cue, my phone rang. "Eric." I let it ring twice before answering. "Mia," he breathed. He sounded tired, defeated. "Good." I didn't say anything. He cleared his throat. "Listen, I know you're upset. I know I messed up." I raised an eyebrow. That was new. A small attempt at taking accountability. But I wasn't buying it. "I'm not upset, Dad," I said calmly. "I'm just done." He let out a forced chuckle. "Come on, kiddo, don't say that. We can work this out. Just give me some time, all right? Time won't change the fact that you stole from me." A pause. Then his tone sharpened. "You don't understand. I didn't have a choice." "Oh?" I leaned back, my voice laced with mock curiosity. "So you were forced to drain my college fund? Someone held you at gunpoint and made you gamble my future away?" His silence told me everything I needed to know. I scoffed. "You made a choice, Dad. And now you get to live with it." His voice dropped, lower and more desperate now. "Mia, I have nothing left." I closed my eyes. For a brief second, a tiny part of me, the little girl who had once idolized him, almost caved. But then I remembered. I remembered the hospital bed I had been lying in. I remembered the moment I checked my empty bank account and realized he had stolen my entire future out from under me. I hardened my heart. "That's not my problem," I said simply. "You're really gonna do this to me?" His voice turned sharp again. Defensive, angry. "After everything I've done for you?" I laughed. Actually laughed. "Everything you've done for me?" I repeated. "Like what? Teach me how to survive? Teach me how to never trust anyone? Or was it the part where you left me broke and abandoned while I was recovering from surgery?" Silence. I sighed. "You want my forgiveness?" I asked. "Yes." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Then pay me back," I said coldly. Another long pause. Then he whispered, "I can't." I smirked. "Then we have nothing else to talk about." And I hung up. For good. The legal hammer falls. The next morning, I met with Aunt Sarah in her office. She handed me a stack of legal documents. "It's official. We filed the demand letter. If he doesn't start repaying you immediately, we escalate this to court." I nodded. "And if he still doesn't comply?" She smiled. "Then we press fraud charges." I exhaled, relief washing over me. This was really happening. For the first time in his life, Eric was going to face real consequences, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The aftermath week 1, Eric stopped calling. My guess? He was too busy trying to scrape together whatever money he could. Good. Let him sweat. Week 2, a family meeting was held. Word had spread about what he did. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone knew. Eric tried to spin the story, claiming I had exaggerated the situation. But I had receipts, and when I laid them out in front of the entire family, one thing became clear. Nobody believed him anymore. By the end of the meeting, Eric had been cut off completely. He had no allies left. Week 3, the first payment arrived in my account. A pathetic amount, but proof that he knew he had lost. Week 4, I found out from my grandmother that Eric was leaving town. Running away. Typical. "Let him," I told her, "as long as he knows he's not escaping, miss. Because no matter where he went, the legal debt remained. Every single month he'd be reminded of me, of the daughter he underestimated, of the future he tried to steal, but ultimately failed to take." 1 year later, it took months, but I finally graduated. I was free. Eric, on the other hand, he was still paying me back, slowly, painfully, piece by piece. I heard through the family that he had burned through every bridge. No one would lend him money. No one would bail him out. He was truly alone, and that was the greatest revenge of all. One night, nearly a year later, my phone buzzed. Eric. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Then, on impulse, I answered. "Mia," he breathed. "I heard you graduated." I didn't respond. "That's great." He continued. "I always knew you were smart." I closed my eyes. He was testing the waters, seeing if I had forgiven him, seeing if he could worm his way back in. He cleared his throat. "Listen, I was thinking maybe we should talk. Clear the air." I let out a slow breath. Then I smiled. "No, Dad," I said softly. "We're done." Silence. Then his voice turned cold. "Oh, so that's it? You got your little revenge and now you think you're better than me?" I chuckled. "No, Dad. I just don't need you anymore." And then I hung up. For the final time. The greatest revenge. A few weeks later, I received a letter from my grandmother. Inside was a check for the exact amount that Eric had stolen from me. I immediately picked up the phone. "Grandma, I can't take this." "Yes, you can," she said firmly, "and you will." Tears burned in my eyes. "Why?" She sighed. "Because I don't want his theft to define you. I want you to move forward without that weight." I swallowed hard. "Thank you," she chuckled. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll never let anyone, family or not, take advantage of you again." I closed my eyes, and I knew I would never make that mistake again. The sun had barely risen when I got the call. It wasn't my father this time. He had gone silent after our last conversation. Instead, it was my grandmother. "He's leaving town," she said without preamble. I sat up in bed, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. "Running, you mean?" She sighed. "Yes, he's telling everyone he needs a fresh start, that he's been unfairly judged." I let out a dry laugh. "Of course he is." This was classic Greg. Whenever the walls closed in, he didn't face the consequences. He just packed up and ran, pretending none of it had ever happened. Except this time, he wasn't escaping. His debts were still there. The legal agreement he signed was still binding, and no matter where he went, he would never outrun what he owed me. Let him go, I told my grandmother. As long as he knows he's not free. And with that, I closed my laptop and got ready for my day. I wasn't wasting another second thinking about him. Moving forward. A few months passed. I finished my last semester. With the emergency grants and part-time work, I had covered my tuition without a single cent from him. And even though it had been exhausting, I felt lighter than I had in years. Because now, for the first time in my life, I was free. No longer waiting for his approval. No longer hoping he'd change. No longer chained to the endless cycle of lies and betrayal. One day, after finishing an exam, I checked my bank account. Another small deposit had come in from him. Pathetic, but proof that he still knew he had lost. I smirked and shut my phone. Good. Let him pay me in small, painful pieces. The unexpected message. Weeks later, I got a text. It was from Jake, my cousin. Jake, yo, I know you don't care, but Uncle Greg is back. I stared at the message for a long moment. I wasn't surprised. Men like Greg always thought they could come back when people forgot the damage they caused. But I wasn't the same girl I was a year ago, and I would never forget. I finally typed back. Me. Is he asking for money? Jake replied almost immediately. Not yet, but I wouldn't be shocked. I smirked. Typical. This was his pattern. Step 1, play the victim. Step 2, convince people he's changed. Step 3, start borrowing money again. Step 4, repeat until he's caught. Not this time. The final move, I didn't need revenge anymore. I had already won. But I wanted to make one thing very clear. He was never coming back into my life, so I did the one thing he never expected. I called him. When he answered, I could hear the shock in his voice. Mia, he breathed. I didn't let him finish. I heard you're back, I said coolly. Silence. Then a nervous chuckle. Yeah, I don't care, I cut in. I just wanted to make something clear. I let the silence stretch. Let him feel the weight of my words. You don't exist to me anymore, I continued, so don't even think about trying to come back into my life. Don't call, don't text, don't try to worm your way back in. Mia, I'm done, I said, my voice like ice. Another long silence. Then his tone changed. It was no longer regretful, no longer pretending, now it was bitter. Oh, so that's it? He spat. You think you're better than me now? I smiled. No, Dad, I just don't need you anymore. And for the first time in my entire life, I meant it. I hung up. And that was the last time we ever spoke. The real victory. A year passed, then 2. Greg faded into the background, nothing more than a bad memory. I graduated, I got my first real job, and I never once needed a single dollar from him. Then, one day, I received a letter from my grandmother. Inside was a check for the exact amount Greg had stolen. I immediately picked up the phone. Grandma, I can't take this. Yes, you can, she said firmly, and you will. Tears burned in my eyes. Why? She sighed. Because I don't want his theft to define you. I want you to move forward without that weight. I swallowed hard. Thank you, she chuckled. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll never let anyone, family or not, take advantage of you again. I closed my eyes, and I knew I would never make that mistake again. The final thought. Greg lost everything. The family cut him off permanently. His reputation was destroyed. And every single month, he was reminded that I was no longer his safety net. I, on the other hand, I thrived. I built a life without him. I found success despite him. And the best part, he had to watch it happen, knowing he had no part in it. The greatest revenge wasn't money. It was freedom. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I walked in. The hum of the espresso machine, the quiet chatter of a few customers, it all felt so normal, like nothing had changed. But I had. As I stepped toward the counter, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. A new email. Subject, payment confirmation. My lips curled into a small smile. Another deposit from Greg. Like clockwork, every month he paid back the money he stole from me. Slowly, painfully. I never responded to his desperate attempts to talk. I never acknowledged his messages or his apologies, because I didn't need to. I had already won. An unexpected conversation. I ordered my coffee and sat by the window, scrolling through my phone when a familiar voice made me look up. Hey, Mia. I blinked. Ryan. For a moment debated, pretending I hadn't seen him. After all, he had spent years blindly defending Greg, refusing to believe he was anything other than the charming father figure he pretended to be. But something was different. Ryan looked exhausted. There were shadows under his eyes. His usual cocky posture was gone. Against my better judgment, I gestured for him to sit. He hesitated before dropping into the chair across from me. I wasn't sure you'd talk to me, he admitted. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Why are you here, Ryan? A humorless chuckle escaped his lips. Guess I deserved that. I didn't respond, just waited. He ran a hand through his hair. I wanted to say I was wrong. That made me pause. He exhaled sharply, looking down at his hands. I spent my whole life believing whatever Dad told me. Even when he stole from you, I kept telling myself he had a reason. That maybe you were exaggerating, that maybe... He shook his head. I was an idiot. I raised an eyebrow. What changed? Ryan let out a bitter laugh. He tried to steal from me. Of course he did. History repeats itself. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Let me guess. He promised you an investment deal? A business partnership? A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Ryan's jaw clenched. Pretty much. I sighed. And you fell for it? He hesitated. I wanted to believe him. I studied him for a moment. He looked wrecked. Greg had finally turned on his golden boy. And now Ryan was sitting across from me, realizing what I had known for years. Greg didn't care about anyone but himself. A hard lesson. Ryan shook his head, staring at the table. I loaned him money, he admitted. Not much, just a little to help him get back on his feet. He scoffed. Or so I thought. I sighed, already knowing where this was going. He gambled it away, didn't he? Ryan nodded stiffly. And when I confronted him, he laughed in my face, told me I was too sensitive. He let out a harsh breath. Sound familiar? I stared at him, my expression unreadable. Yes, I said quietly, it does. Silence stretched between us. Then Ryan spoke again, softer this time. I should have believed you. I should have defended you. I should have. He shook his head. I was a coward. I let out a slow breath. For years, Ryan had sided with Greg, defended him, ignored the damage he caused. And now, after finally seeing the truth, he wanted what? Forgiveness? Closure? I wasn't sure if I had either to give. The final question I met Ryan's gaze. So what do you want from me? He hesitated. Honestly, I don't know. He rubbed a hand over his face. I just know I don't want to be like him. I studied him carefully. Ryan had spent his whole life worshipping Greg. But now he looked lost. For the first time I saw him as something other than my father's puppet. And that was strange. A choice, Ryan swallowed. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I see it now. On all of it. I didn't say anything right away, because I knew what he was really asking. He wanted to know if we could ever be siblings again. If I could ever trust him again. Finally, I spoke. I appreciate you saying that, Ryan, I said carefully. But forgiveness isn't about words. It's about actions. Ryan nodded slowly. I get that. I finished my coffee and stood up. For what it's worth, I said, meeting his gaze. I hope you figure out who you want to be. Then I walked away. Moving on, I didn't hate Ryan, but I wasn't sure if I could ever let him back in. And maybe that was okay, because for the first time in years I wasn't holding on to anger. I wasn't waiting for Greg to change. I wasn't waiting for Ryan to take my side. I was just living. And that was the greatest victory of all. The summer air was thick with heat as I stepped out onto my apartment balcony, a fresh cup of coffee in my hands. The city below hummed with life, cars honking, people laughing, the distant wail of a siren. It had been 6 months since I last spoke to Greg. 6 months since I finally cut him out of my life. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the bitterness settle on my tongue. I was free, and that freedom tasted better than anything I had ever known. The last attempt I hadn't heard from Greg in months, not since I exposed his financial abuse to the rest of our family. At first, I thought he had finally given up, that he had disappeared like he always did when things got too hard. But then, he called. I saw his name flash across my screen one evening, the familiar knot of tension curling in my stomach. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something in me, curiosity, maybe, made me pick up. Greg? A long sigh. Mia. Silence stretched between us. Then he spoke, his voice unusually careful. I wanted to check in on you. I snorted. That's new. A chuckle. Forced. Come on, sweetheart, we've been through a lot. I rolled my eyes. We haven't been through anything. You stole from me. I held you accountable. End of story. More silence. Then, look, I know you're still mad. I laughed, shaking my head. Mad? No, Greg. I'm done. A pause. He hated when I called him Greg instead of Dad. It was a reminder that he no longer held any power over me. You don't mean that, he said, his voice dipping into manipulation mode. We're family. Families fight, but they always find their way back to each other. I leaned against the railing of my balcony, staring down at the moving lights of the city. Families fight. But real families didn't steal from each other. Real families didn't lie and manipulate. Real families didn't use their children like a personal bank account. I took a deep breath. No, Greg, they don't. His breath hitched. He hadn't expected that. You're really going to cut me off over some money? He snapped, his patience finally breaking. I smiled. There it was, the real Greg. This was never about money, I said. It was about trust, and you broke that beyond repair. Another silence, then the final blow. Don't call me again. And with that, I hung up. A new chapter. That night, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had held on to anger, onto resentment, onto this idea that Greg owed me an apology. But now, I didn't need one, because I was done waiting for closure from a man who would never give it to me. The next morning, I got an email from my bank. Subject: final payment received. I clicked it open, my eyes scanning the numbers. The last deposit Greg owed me. It was over. He had nothing left to hold over me. No debt, no guilt, no control. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. For the first time in my life, Greg Carter no longer had a place in it, rebuilding on my terms. The months that followed were different. For so long, my life had revolved around fighting back, reclaiming what was mine, proving that I wasn't weak. But now that I had won, what came next? At first, I didn't know. But then, opportunity found me. One evening, I was scrolling through job postings when I saw it. A nonprofit looking for financial literacy consultants. I clicked the link, skimming through the description. They specialized in helping young adults escape financial abuse. I froze. Something in my chest tightened. Because I knew that struggle. I knew what it was like to be manipulated, to have your money stolen, to feel powerless in your own life. And maybe, just maybe, I could help someone else avoid what I went through. Without thinking, I clicked apply. The final goodbye. 3 months later, I sat in my new office, organizing case files, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I frowned, hesitating before picking up. Mia Carter? A voice asked. Speaking. This is Officer Reynolds from the State Fraud Division. We're conducting an investigation into a Gregory Carter. Do you have a moment? My stomach dropped. Greg, I forced my voice to stay even. I do. The officer sighed. He was reported for multiple fraudulent activities, including attempting to open credit accounts under a false identity. We understand you previously filed complaints against him? I exhaled slowly. Yes, I did. Well, the officer continued, your case helped establish a pattern. We just wanted to inform you that Greg Carter has been arrested. I sat back, gripping my phone tighter. He's currently awaiting trial, the officer added. We'll reach out if we need a formal statement. I swallowed, nodding. Thank you for letting me know. As I ended the call, my hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, not from shock, but from relief. Greg Carter had finally run out of people to scam. And now he was facing real consequences. I should have felt bad. But I didn't. Because he did this to himself. Moving forward. That night, I sat on my balcony again, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. My life was finally my own. No more Greg. No more debt. No more waiting for someone else to fix things. For the first time, I felt whole. And the best part? I did it on my own. I reached for my phone, typing out a text to my grandmother. He got arrested. It's over. Her reply came almost instantly. I knew it would catch up to him eventually. You did good, sweetheart. I'm proud of you. I smiled. Because for the first time, I was proud of myself too. The greatest revenge wasn't about making Greg suffer. It wasn't even about getting my money back. It was about winning my life back. And I had.